Hello, BookTube. I'm going to do a bookshelf tour. I have tried this twice and felt that the videos were not good. So this one isn't going to be much better. There'll be no human with a sport coat and a t-shirt with flashy edits and edits that come right immediately at the end of the sentence. Don't know how to do that, so apologize in advance. This is down and dirty, so here we go. My plan is to go through the shelves. I don't have a huge amount, so it won't take long. I'm going to start over here on this side. Up here is my horror section. I've got Robert R Mccammon. You can kind of see some of these. I'll say this right off the bat. Some of these I have not read. Let me say that again. Actually, quite a bit of these I have not read. Reason being is so many of the books I went through, and after I read, I would sell. And yeah, I've struggled with in the past keeping the book versus selling it. I've gone back and forth of wanting the whole collection. Keeping some that I would read again is was the latest thing that I was doing. So I've kind of watched more YouTube videos and realized that a lot of people are, able to talk about books they've read because they have them on their shelves, and I don't have a lot of those. So we'll see how that goes. There's some that maybe I'll go through and buy just to have as a collection, but I don't know. And you'll see a lot on here that I do have that. But anyway, so I want to go back up here. These are the horror books. Like I had the first Robert R Mccammon book I ever read, which was Wolf's Hour. I wish I still had that. I do not. Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire. I do not have. I wish I still had it because I was walking through. I remember walking to class my first year in college and just kind of killing the time with the long walks, reading that as I walked to class. So kind of be cool to have that. I wouldn't mind reading that again. This is my Anno Dracula. I just read this year. Really, really enjoyed that. Behind it is a Dan Barretton print. Dan Barretton, who'll come up on these this actual shelf tour later, as a illustrator and graphic art, graphic novelist, I guess, comic book guy. But he's got a kind of Halloween edge to it, and really neat art style that I just have grown to love. So I've got a few Stephen King's. I haven't read a ton of his. I've really enjoyed Dune McKee. On writing, I enjoyed that. I thought that was pretty good for somebody that hadn't read a lot on writing and stuff like that, so enjoyed that. Under the Dome and It. I read Under the Dome, and it took me almost 8 years. Reason being is I'd set it on my nightstand, and I'm one of those people that'll have a couple books going, one that I would take with me in the car and one that I'd leave on the nightstand. That book was kind of slow, and so I read it less and less, but I just wanted to finish it, so I ended up taking about 8 years to finish it. I was able to follow the story. It wasn't that, hard to do. To me, it wasn't that great, but the concept was really cool. I loved it, loved the concept and everything, but ending was not one of my favorites. So, but let's move on to my Ari Salvatore books. You can see I have quite a few. I have a couple Funko Pops. These books were mostly paperback, and then he started re-releasing them in hardback form with some better artwork from Todd Lockwood, and I just fell in love with the artwork of Todd Lockwood. So I think this is actually an early Lockwood cover too. So I went through and I have bought all these in hardback. I'm not through with this series as of yet. I am right here. So I think I'm 26 or something, 23 into it. So I'm probably 6 books behind. These being the last 3. There's some graphic novels of the first few books. It's a cool statue I got. Trying not to clutter my bookshelves with Funkos and stuff like that. It's kind of bothering me. I don't mind that. I think that's pretty cool looking. But the Funko Pops, I'm just not sure about. I don't know if that's me or not. A couple more Salvatores. And a picture my daughter made. This is more fantasy. I did keep my Hickman and Weiss books. I absolutely enjoyed those. Probably the books that kicked me off into fantasy were those, and then I went into the Ari Salvatore, just kind of found him from research. So I've got a lot of these books I've heard some good things about, been recommended, some that I'll pick up with discount. In here, I hope the camera was pointing the right way. In here are some books from my childhood. These are Rose Estes books, and she wrote a series, or she wrote some books that you would get at school that were choose your own adventure, and these are those from when I was a kid. They were on bookmarks back then. And I only have a few of these. I wish I had them all. But I always just remember staring at the artwork and going, what is this world or whatever? And this is one of the first ones. I remember getting this in Scholastic. I think those are still around. So, okay. So that's fantasy. Over here I go to more fantasy. These are, so again, some books I haven't read. I've read obviously the Tolkien stuff. I have not read this Children of Hurin yet, and I will. This is a neat book, Devil's Rose by Brom. He's a graphic designer, I guess, and storyteller, and really neat art. And he's done a couple different books that are kind of a unique style. Next is my Robert A. Howard. I can tell I'm saying and again, I'm sorry. Robert E. Howard, Solomon Kane, just started these books in the last year. Picked up this one, and I'm about halfway through, and I've really enjoyed this. They're easy reads and just a very interesting character for sure. This is my Conan Chronicles. I saw this on some other much better booktubers that had this, and I really cannot wait to get into that, which I will. I had to reinforce that and tape it up because it came from eBay in pretty poor shape. But these are some of my dad's Conan books that I lifted off him. Glenn Cook, I've got these 2 books ready to go. I want to read these. My Sanderson collection, I've only read one Sanderson book, which was The Way of Kings, which I really enjoyed. Thought it was really great. It was very long, as you can tell. Next is this series I found called the Enchanted World series. It's one of those Time Life series. My dad used to have the Time Life World War II books, and I was absolutely fascinated with those as a kid. Spent hours drawing pictures out of them, looking through, and just amazed at that series, and that those would come to the house every month or whatever it was. So I didn't know they did a fantasy series till a couple of years ago, so I've got one so far. Maybe we'll get another one. Down here is Edgar Rice Burroughs. Went to a bookshop that closed, and the lady had a small little bookstore, and it was closing down last maybe a year and a half ago. And just got some great books there at great prices. Sad to see her store go, because it was wonderful. Next shelf is some Robert Asprin. Robert Asprin was one of these people that I just happened to see one of these books, and I thought the cover looked interesting. It was this one, and I was like, "What is that?" It's kind of a fantasy, whatever, and I've really enjoyed that. They're just little fun fantasy books, nothing too serious. what I've read so far. I think I've read 3 or 4 of those and found some other ones. So I don't know much about him or anything, but really enjoyed that find. Next is the Elric. I have maybe one Elric book here, and I've heard a lot about him. I know he influenced so many writers and have not read that book, but again, that's on my to be read before I die, hopefully. A couple of these other ones too I've heard are great books, have not read. I've got the first 3 of the Doc Savage books. All really neat, interesting covers, little pulps. And have not read those. Again, apologize for not having read some of these, but I'm getting to them and trying to just collect ones that I want. Next is some more fantasy. One of my favorite writers for palate cleansing type reads, we all have those, is Kevin J. Anderson's Dan Shamble, Private Eye. And they're fun little private investigative stories, nothing crazy or hard to read, but just really fun, and really have grown to love this character, so I'm always looking forward to a new Dan Shamble, private investigator. Basically, he's a zombie, and he investigates, gets involved in these stories that happen in the unnatural quarter, where all sorts of monsters and people like that run around. Really fun, easy, and good book. So these are some of the short stories that he's put out. These next 2, I've read Nicholas Ames, Kings of the Wild. It was my favorite book I read last year. Just had an absolute blast with that book. Can't wait to read this one, which will be done this year. Next is a couple Neil Gaiman. I have read a few Neil Gaiman, and I worry about I don't know that I enjoyed it as much as I thought I would. Maybe he takes a little bit of getting used to, so definitely want to try some more. And but one book I did like by him was the one about the graveyard kid or graveyard shift or whatever. Thought that was a great one. Really enjoyed that. Again, sorry about the weird stuff in there. Jim Butcher, I have 2. One of these a friend of mine gave to me, got it signed. I've read all the Jim Butchers except the last one. I've been doing those on Audible for when I was commuting, or if I'm going to bed at night, I'll listen to 15 minutes of it here and there, or as I commute. So I've done most of those on Audible, probably 90% of them. So that's it. All right, next is the next shelf. This is the Dan Barretton Nocturnal Shelf. Again, I'm a big fan of his work. You can kind of see his art style. Really, really great. And he's done other books as well. He's done some Batman and stuff like that. Really unique style. You'll recognize Dan Barretton on any of his. And these are some of his big art print books where they go in and just have pictures of various prints that he's painted. And he'll talk a little bit about them. So next, starting to get into my sci-fi area. I've got some Star Trek novels, 3 or 4 of them back there. I just picked up Dune this week. I know that is a must-read, and I probably need to get to that this year. Astounding was great. I'm sure a lot of y'all have read that. I've been starting to get a couple of these short story collections, and picked up maybe 4 of those. John Scalzi, I've kind of really started to enjoy him, and I read The Agent to the Stars on my iPad and absolutely love that. I don't know, sometimes books just hit you in a different way, maybe a different time period, whatever you're going through, and it just really made me laugh. So I enjoyed that. So I've read Old Man's War and, some in that series. Fuzzy Nation was good. Collapsing Empire I read as well. Haven't read this one yet. So I've got keep going here. This series just came in. I read straight out of Tombstone. These are Western kind of horror fantasy books, and with really great covers. And so I got that, and then this one came in this week, straight out of Deadwood, along with straight out of Dodge City. So those are fun. I can't wait to read the other two. I've got some more science fiction back here. Again, a lot of these I've picked up and off recommendations of other booktubers. So I think I've grown tremendously just from being involved in BookTube, even though I'm a lurker. And I'll be reading the Star Tide Rising this year. Can't wait to read that. I've heard some good things about that. Last shelf, and I apologize this is so long, are some superheroes. Probably should get rid of those. I enjoyed Kingdom Come and The Death of Superman a lot. The other two could probably get rid of. The Incredible Hulk book I got when I was really young, probably in the 70s. I don't know what year this one was, but my parents have always kept a lot of my stuff. Obviously, this came out in, I don't know when, but they're little pocket books. So I'm glad I still have that one. I was an Incredible Hulk fan growing up, still am. Don't read a lot of this stuff anymore, but do enjoy picking up an occasional book, see what he's up to. These are my Star Wars books. I'm in the last book of that trilogy. Enjoyed that. Shadows of the Empire was great. I just picked up these two in the last week. I've got this one because it was written by Ari Salvatore, and I thought, and as well as Vector Prime, we all know the controversy behind that one and what he did and how he feels about that one. So I've got those two. I don't know if I'll read those, but probably will, because I do enjoy Ari's work. So, and I'd like to see what else, because I've only read the Dritz stuff by him pretty much, so I'd like to see what his writing in a sci-fi setting is like. And really, that is it. I've got a couple of books down here, some Army books. I've got some Civil War and some high school annuals, stuff like that. And then right next to it, I'll end this right now, is my to be read, some graphic novels that I've got. These are Aquaman, some of the Swamp Things, and a Born Again Daredevil. The Swamp Things I've been reading, and I have found that, I don't know, maybe it's comic books. I swear I've always been a comic book fan, but I read them and I like the artwork more than the stories, so I don't know. But the Swamp Things just aren't grabbing me. I think the story, the artwork's cool, you know, it's early 80s, I think. Could be wrong on that. But anyways, just not grabbing me yet, and I'm 2 or 3 into that series, actual big, thick graphic novels there. So I'm going to try to tough it out and keep going. Maybe it'll get better. Obviously written by Alan Moore, so it's probably supposed to be good. The other thing is, what I was going to suggest, and I made some notes and left them over there, is that, you know, if you, I don't know what you think about the organization. If you organize yours in a different way, let me know. If you see something that looks out of place or whatever, I've organized this and pulled it all down and put it back up in different ways, and I'll get to the other shelves later on. But that is, you know, if you have any tips or anything, I'd like to hear about it. I don't have obviously a huge amount of books, but enjoy what I've got and enjoy what I've got. So here's the other thing. I'm trying to figure out if I should do a TBR shelf. Or right now, they're stacked up on the ground. And I just wonder if I should do a TBR shelf, if that's kind of fun, or is it more fun to kind of just browse through your books, go through and go, all right, this is next. But then there's books that I'm like, I definitely want to get to this year, and I'm afraid I'll forget those if I just file them somewhere. So, or file them with all these other books. So I don't know. What do y'all do? Do you put it in a shelf by itself? Do you write it down somewhere? how do you do it? Just any tips is cool. If not, no worries. And that is it. Thanks, y'all.